Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social podcast. Today I am joined by Issam and Twan.
Hello.
Hey everybody.
We will be discussing the second race of the Ethias Cross of this season, and that was the one in Beringen, the race held on the Benen mine, and it is the third time that this race was held, and Issam will tell us exactly what went down in the men's race.
Yeah, so it was a sunny day and a warm day, so it was very nice to look at the men's race. To be honest, we saw a very strong Twan Aerts in the beginning of the race, which was completely the opposite from last race. Laurens Zweek was good in front and Van Toerenhout as well. At a certain point, Van Toerenhout actually had some issues with his derailleur, so he lost some time and had to stop. Iserbyt was having some issues in the beginning of the race, especially with his start. Came back and I was looking strong. And then the moment actually that Van Toerenhout had this issue, Zweek drops because probably of his very impressive start in a way and the way he looked at that moment. And then we had a two-way battle, at least that was what we were thinking. And then Twan Aerts got the puncture on the front, which was his I think his second puncture already. And Iserbyt was gone. He would win the race and actually maybe a gifted win, who knows, but definitely not the strongest. And then behind it was actually Lars Van Der Haar that came out of maybe nowhere. He had problems with his start, actually a lot of shoulder issue, I think. And then he came back to get even a second place, which shows that he is in incredible shape. And a guy that we didn't talk about at the moment, Daan Soete. He runs up the podium in Beringen.
Let's talk about that a bit more. Was it a gifted win or was Iserbyt really the strongest yesterday?
We had that group of four at the start, of course, and it looked like they were very well matched with each other, slowly like Laurens Zweek dropping back. And I never really got the intention, got the thoughts that Iserbyt was the strongest there. I think they were all really like trying to feel each other out, and it was always Twan Aerts that made the better impression on me.
I would agree. Iserbyt never looked to be the strongest, but it also looked like he was lacking focus. He was making small mistakes here and there, meaning he was distant, but never fully dropped. It was always like 5, sometimes 10 bike lengths, and then he would come back, make a mistake, be dropped again, move up into third, and then make a mistake, meaning he and Van Toerenhout got dropped, and then he would come back again. It went really back and forward there, and I never had the intention, or I never had the feeling that Iserbyt was really at the best of his game there. And indeed, I agree, Twan Aerts and Zweek looked stronger, but Zweek eventually blew up. Aerts had that puncture. Was Iserbyt bad? No, at some point he did get into some focus, but personally, I think that Aerts or even Van Der Haar would have been the deserved winners yesterday.
Yeah, I can only agree with what you're saying because Iserbyt, especially in the beginning of the race, he recovered from his bad start in a way. But it was definitely not. He was not giving me the impression that he was sitting well on the bike, that he was comfortable, that he was, going well on the pace as well. Zweek and Van Toerenhout definitely already his teammates alone showed signs that they were stronger. But that, for Zweek, he just blew up the moment Van Toerenhout had the issue and Twan Aerts went on the attack. Zweek had no answer, so it seems that Zweek was just not really good. And then we have to look at Van Der Haar and Twan Aerts as the guys that were probably the ones, if they didn't have their issues, that could battle with Iserbyt. So it's a bit of a shame that we couldn't see that battle.
Yeah, about Van Der Haar, I was really surprised by how good he was. I agree with what was said during the broadcast that I haven't seen him doing things he did these two first races. I haven't seen him do that in the past couple of years. He was really strong here on this Benen mine here. He, in the first lap, dislocated his shoulder, needed to sit down, put it back himself, was around half a minute down, manages to come back into the race, overtaking riders, keeping up with the same pace as the leaders whilst not being able to sit in. Really impressive stuff.
Van Der Haar really coming into this season with some solid form and ready to go to the USA for those World Cups.
Yeah, I definitely think that Van Der Haar should be good there in the United States. Those parcourses should suit him, just like the parcours suited Daan Soete here in Beringen. This is the perfect parcours for him. He rides on the mountain bike here. He lives nearby. He's always good here, getting third. Basically, he was trailing the entire race. He had a bad start, and then he basically moved up together with Van Der Haar, third place. Is this a surprise to you guys, or did you expect it?
I was expecting Daan Soete, but like as we got out of like the first 2 laps, I was like, he might just be a bit further back than I had expected. Kind of hoped that this would be the sort of race where he could sort of challenge the Laurens Sveeks, Michael van Torenhout for that top 3 spot, and then with a bit of fortune, with misfortune with other people, he was still able to get a very nice third place.
Yeah, I think he did take use of the bad luck other riders had, but he also had a bad start himself, which of course is your own fault and not comparable to a puncture. But I think if we were to put things into perspective, I think that probably Van Der Haar was the strongest, followed by Aerts, and then for a third it would be very close between Iserbyt and Van Torenhout.
We shouldn't be like putting Iserbyt completely out of contention of being the strongest this date, because we know Iserbyt that he can play some games sometimes, that he can show to the outside, because the amount of times that I've seen him bridge a gap quite easily in the race is also showing that he was feeling very strong. And the moment Aerts attacked as well and Sveek completely blew, there was only one guy that was able to follow in the wheel. So it's maybe Aerts gave that impression that he was very strong, but I think Iserbyt was definitely not a lot worse or something.
Let's run down the entire top 10 then. In first place we had Eli Iserbyt, as said, in front of Van Der Haar and Daan Soete. Fourth place we find Laurens Sveek in front of Toon Aerts, who had the double puncture. Sixth place for Jens Adams in front of Witse Meeussen. In 8th place we find Pim Ronnaar in front of Landerlooks, and Toon van der Bos rounds off the top 10. I would like to touch upon Witse Meeussen. We talked about him in our season preview podcast. We said this was the season that he needed to be making steps if he wanted to show us he was really as talented as we thought in the junior category. And he has so far basically done that.
Yeah, this is just an amazing performance on Beringen. A course which doesn't really lie in, unless you have some mechanical failures, of course. But beating some very promising riders here, like Ryan Kamp, Toon van der Bos, and Pim Ronnaar. Some of the people in his age category, of course. And Witse Meeussen just showing that he can finally convert on that potential that people saw. After I think some 2 years with a lot of injuries.
Yeah, very true. He had the injury in his first year as under 23, and last year, of course, was a difficult year as well. So I guess that also did hamper him, but it's good to see him, and certainly good for himself, but I also think it's just good to see that he is finally showing us the full potential he has. Someone who maybe didn't fully do that are two riders who started their season here in Beringen, Pim Ronnaar and Ryan Kamp, the two Dutch riders 1 and 2 at the Under 23 World Championships last year. What do you guys make of their performances here?
They went out too hard. And yeah, this is just a course where you have to pick your own tempo and see what result that gets you. And I guess both of them blew up and really paid the price for their hard starts, because they were really trying to stay with the front 5 at the first lap.
Well, I think we've had it then for the men's race here in Beringen. Let's go on and talk about the women's race. Twan, what went down in that race?
What went down was Yara Kastelijn, who came with something to prove today, and she led from start to finish, as it were early on Betsema, Van Empel and Van Androoy chasing her. Van Empel couldn't quite keep up, and Van Androoy kept battling on, and it was Betsema that was a bit surprising, but didn't quite have her day, and had to take home a third place, more than 30 seconds behind Yara Kastelijn, who managed to take a very, very impressive victory here in Beringen.
I really think there isn't a lot to say about this women's race. Kastelijn simply the strongest. However, we do have something to talk about with Kastelijn, who took her first win in 665 days. Her last win was the Ambiance Cross in Wachterbeke 2 years ago. But Kastelijn taking the win here, she did look more confident in the downhills. Like, it still wasn't perfect her technique, but I could definitely see some improvement, both in skill and in confidence.
Yeah, certainly the confidence. You saw her really sending it down those descents, and you saw like in the last few laps maybe she backed off a little, but it is certainly promising, and I look forward to seeing how this measures up against the other women in the more technical races.
Last episode we were a little bit more critical about her, the way she was riding and about the technique. So I think that aged pretty well because it looked very good. We cannot the video didn't lie, the race and the feed didn't lie. It was a great cornering from her. Uh, Good way of handling the bike in the descent as well, which is a tricky descent, especially with that gravel. So, fair play, and it looked very good. So maybe if we have more of these dry races with a lot of climbing, she's definitely one of the women that you can name for a podium and even a win.
Yeah, definitely. I think last week it still looked a bit more dodgy, especially in the downhill there in local. I saw some very bad runs by her in that downhill. But this weekend, it's like day and night. It looked much better, and I think it's mainly down to the confidence. She looks to have listened to what has been said over the last 2 seasons that she should really improve her technique. She said it in the interview afterwards that she has been training a lot on her technique over the past summer, which I guess is good news considering she's also done very good on the road, which just shows that there is a lot of talent in her. If it's more on the road or in the field, well, that's a bit of a guess. Who knows? Who knows where Kastelijn stands when everyone is in the field? Well, we don't know and we can speculate, but it won't get us any further. So I think we should just wait and see. But it's at least good to see that she has more confidence, and I think it all starts with confidence.
Yeah, and I think the engine has never been the problem, right? Because on the Koppenberg Cross, you always rate her down, I think, for a top 3, top 5, maybe even challenging for a win. It is really that technique where she lost, or well, maybe still will, loses too much time. And as long as she's confident indeed, like a lot can happen for you then.
Well, the runner-up Shirin van Anrooy ended 17 seconds down. Kastelijn did back off a bit in the last couple of laps, but very good for Shirin van Anrooy. Just a week ago, she was racing the European Championships on the road, under 23. Got, I think, 6th in the road race and 8th in the time trial. Very good for her to start her season with a second place, because that transition isn't easy. We've seen it.
Yeah, we definitely have seen that the transition can be a problem. So, I think the most important thing about this race in general is that you have to take it with care, and you have to be, knowing what your limit will be. And if you do that, you're able to perform very well. And I think she did that perfectly.
She was together with Betsema for a long time during the race. Betsema eventually fell back a bit, ending in third. What do you guys make of that? Is Betsema maybe lacking a bit of form? Was it a bad day? Perhaps the heat or anything else?
I mean, if you have a bad day on Beringen, there's no place to hide. So I hope that's it for her. She would want to win here, especially with like the sponsors being from here. This being a parkour that really suits her. So yeah, let's hope it's not really a form issue, but just form of the day.
Let's run down the entire top 10 then. Behind the top 3 we just mentioned of Kastelijn van Anrooy and Betsema, we find Fem van Empel in front of Aniek van Alphen. These two riders rode a race pretty similar to the race they did last week. However, now they just find Van Anrooy and Kastelijn in front of them. 6th place for Alicia Frank, 7th for Maud Kapteins, 8th for Anna K, 9th place Karen Verheestraat, and Marta Truijen rounds off the top 10. I would like to touch up on Alicia Frank. 6th place is a very good result by her, especially considering she had a mechanical when she was in a better position. Issam, what do you think of the performance here by Alicia Frank?
She made, like we said in the last episode as well, she made a step, and today, or in Bering at least, it showed again that she was, you know, she was up there with the rest, and even contending a little while for a top 5. Obviously, she had then the issues, the mechanical, so that doesn't really help. And then in the end, was kind of best of the rest in a way, with all the Dutch in front of her. But you know, I think for the season we're gonna see more of Frank, and it wouldn't surprise me if we're gonna see her on the podium, or even maybe even on a winning base.
I think for the rest of the top 10 we haven't seen a lot to talk about. However, I would like to mention the name of Femke Gort, ending 11th, just seconds outside of the top 10 after a crash in the last lap. I think it's very impressive by her. She is first year's under 23, never shown huge potential, but started this season very well with some wins and a second place in some non-UCI races, and then 2 top 20s in the first UCI races of the season. Very impressive stuff. Twan, we shouldn't go into too much depth, but there are a lot of Dutch riders who never show huge potential in juniors, and then all of a sudden they just make a big step and they are there. Do you think that for Femke Gort it's the same?
I think if you can show something on a parcours like Beringen, then you clearly have got something going for you. Of course, 11th place in this field, it's nice, but in a more like deep field, this would be like a lot further down. But it's certainly nice that she was, for example, able to stay within 5 minutes basically of Yara Kastelijn. So it's certainly looking good. Can't complain.
She did still beat Norbert Ribeyrolles, and for Ribeyrolles, I mean, surely something has to be up, because still I don't see the form that I saw 2 seasons ago. And even last season, at sometimes you saw moments that she was really up there fighting, and now it's all gone backwards so fast ever since she became world champion under 23 in Dubendorf.
Yeah, for this season I would just blame it on changing her nationality to Belgian.
On a serious note, I would say that today was not her parcours, so you can always bring that in account. I think she struggled last season quite a lot. Maybe this season is just a bad start of the season, and she's gonna grow in it and then be a little bit better in the following races. But it's definitely not looking good, and indeed she should maybe look into what she was doing before she became world champion, and go to that in a way, because the preparation that she had with the COVID and stuff didn't really help, and this season it is going a bit the same. So maybe she should change something in the training, or something. I don't know.
Let's talk about some other cyclocross news then. There has also been racing in other places than in Belgium, and we will run you down the top 3. I am going to start with Le Grand CX in France C2 race. The men's race was won by Joshua Dubois, who is not riding for Alpecin anymore. He beat Vincent Bastans and Niels van de Putte. The women's race was won by Helene Clauzel, who outsprinted Line Burquier, and Manon Bakker ended third 11 seconds down. I would briefly like to touch upon this performance by Manon Bakker. Last season she also got third places, but then she did it in World Cups or Super Prestige races. It looks like the form isn't really there for her at the moment.
This is indeed not the kind of race where you go to get the third place if you're Manon Bakker. You're hoping to have a very nice day out on the bike and come home with the flowers.
Well, of course, the season is still long. There's a lot of time to make improvements, but you would hope for her that would be coming soon. And we shouldn't look into it too much. I mean, look at Aerts. He looked really bad in Lokeren, and he looked really good in Beringen, so who knows. Then the American circuit is also back, racing in the United States. In the first race there, that was in Roanoke, Virginia, and it was Curtis White who took the win in front of Kerry Werner and Michael van der Ham in the men's race. The women's race was won by Caroline Mani in front of Rebecca Fahringer and Erika Zavetta. The day after Beringen, on Sunday, the day we are recording this, we also saw racing in Spain. The men's elite race there was won by Kevin Suarez Fernandez. He won in front of Luc Verburg and Elitois Ponchon. Women's race was won, as usual, by González Blanco in front of Sara Cueto Vega and Lidia Pinto Larendo. I would like to touch upon the performance of Luc Verburg here. Second place, he made a big step over the summer, Twan.
Yeah, he's been racing really well on the road. Always in the mix in the races that he has been riding over the summer. And yeah, this is the kind of race where if you look like a year, 2 years ago, 2 years ago, especially of course with last year being not having a lot of races with COVID. And this is the kind of race where he would finish like 9th, a minute down on Suarez, and well, I guess he got out sprinted here today, which is very promising.
Then the National Trophy Series in the UK back this season after a year out with COVID. Men's elite race was won by under 23 rider Lewis Askey in front of Arno van der Broek and Ian Field. Women's race was meanwhile won by Amaria Meller in front of Anna Flynn and Abby Manley. Well, I think we could briefly talk about Lewis Askey. It's very good to see him back in the field so early. He has looking to be doing less cyclocross the last couple of years, but now it looks that he is serious in business, at least certainly for that National Trophy Series.
Yeah, on PCS they actually have him listed for the U23 Road World Championships in a few days as well, so a busy program for him, so very promising indeed. He has decided to make his trip over back to England to race over there, and it should certainly be nice for him to have racing back home on, as it is an easy opportunity to get back into it.
Finally, some road news. That's basically why we delayed our podcast with today, because we wanted to include the Men's World Championships ITT. Wout van Aert getting a second place there behind Filippo Ganna. Any comments?
Another second place, huh?
I think it was one of the more tenseful time trials that I've seen in a while. Obviously, you have some of those time trials that have, that are in a Grand Tour, and you have more things that are playing at that time. But for a World Championship to have such a close battle was always nice, and to see a Belgium in his home country fighting the giant from Italy was, I found it fascinating to watch. And despite him coming 5 seconds short, it was an immense performance from Van Aert.
Yeah, I definitely agree. He was super strong, and being beaten by Filippo Ganna by 5 seconds is certainly not a shame. But of course, it makes sense that Van Aert is disappointed. I mean, last year he got second at the World Championships ITT and Road Race, second at the World Championships Cyclocross, second at the Olympics Road Race. In the TT, he didn't get on the podium, and now another second place. I mean, he's collecting a lot of silverware, and I mean, it's frustrating, but at the same time, I think he should be really happy, because it really was the maximum he could achieve today. Next week, of course, the road race. Do you guys have any expectations there for Van Aert, or maybe even Van der Poel, because it looks like he will be starting there?
Maybe even Pidcock. Three solid contenders from the cyclocross scene at the World Championships road race. I'm expecting a very fun race. Turn on the TV, because it's going to be one hell of a time.
Well, then I think we are going to round off this episode. I will actually do that by giving you some latest news coming in. Evie Richards and Jolanda Neff look to be riding the World Cups in the United States. They are currently racing the last World Cup mountain bike in the United States. Evie Richards won the Olympics XCO race there today. Do you guys think that Richards and Neff are going to be good in those World Cups?
Richards on that day is just one scary woman. She can just destroy fields. I think they'll, if they take it seriously, then they will certainly be in the mix, I guess, and it will be a lot of fun to see them back in cyclocross.
Another rider for mountain biking who will be riding there is short track world champion in the men's category, Christopher Blevins. Issam, what do you expect from him?
Well, I think he is gonna be there. Obviously, he was saying that he was gonna do some cyclocross, so it's gonna be interesting to watch him, see what he can do. I think that he is probably going to be more there for the joy than for something else. So I'm just looking forward to see how he's going to deal with the cyclocross guys, and if he's gonna be able to keep up with them, and that alone would be an achievement if he's gonna be able to show himself. And we can see him in the broadcast going along with some of the riders.
Well, anyway, we will be back next weekend with the Ethias Cross in Bredene and the Road World Championships, where we're keeping an eye out on Van der Poel, Pidcock, Van Aert, and probably also Thibaut Nys. Issam and Twan, thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for having us. Yes, thank you.
And as said, we will be back next week, so I will catch you guys then. Goodbye.